If you think this year's New York City mayoral election has a different feel to it, you're not alone. It's the first time there hasn't been an incumbent on the ballot in 12 years, and with no clear Democratic frontrunner, labor unions think it's the perfect time to reestablish their political street cred, among them the Unified Federation of Teachers, or UFT. The UFT hasn't endorsed any mayoral candidate since Mark Green in 2001, but today they have, and their pick? Former city controller, former Board of Ed chairman, and 2009 Democratic nominee Bill Thompson. How big of a deal is this for Thompson?
It's a huge deal.
Why?
The UFT is one of the two stamps of approval everybody who runs for mayor wants. The other one is the New York Times endorsement.
These are the Democrats.
These are the Democrats, just to be clear. Bloomberg could be right to be the kiss of death for Joe Lhota, for instance. For Thompson, it's huge, not just because people care about what teachers think, and actually the UFT, despite all the fighting with City Hall, their approval rating is higher than mayor's on education. So they care what they think, and it's a stamp of approval for education voters, which is always in the top 3 of every voter's list, but also the troops that come with it, the money that comes with it, not just money that's given to the campaign, but money that's going to be spent in an independent expenditure that's allowed now for them to do pretty much at whatever level they want, is going to be flowing out of the UFT, and that's going to be a massive help to Bill Thompson.
Let's make this clear. The union itself is after one thing and one thing only.
What's that?
The best possible contract they can ever get for their members. Okay. The teachers are fantastic. We all know that. Are they underpaid? Most likely, I would say in most cases, yes. Is the system broken? Yes. Are the people the right ones to fix it, the UFT? Absolutely not. But what they bring to the table here with the endorsement is the bodies and the money. Mm-hmm. You have a spending cap in New York City for the matching funds program that you get, about approximately $6.3 million. There's some variations in that, but 6.3 is a simple number to use. UFT can spend $8 to $10 million on the primary, or whatever it wants, but without blinking an eye, $8 to $10 million on paying people to make phone calls, on mail, on TV, on any of these things. Yeah. That is incredible power. And oh, by the way, they back Thompson and he ends up winning. God forbid what happens in this city.
Yeah.
Dominic, does this finally elevate Thompson to where Quinn and Weiner have been, at least in the polls?
Well, he was always there, if not higher. It's just the polls didn't reflect that. The rap on Mr. Thompson was that this guy just doesn't want it. Why isn't he out there campaigning harder? Well, now we're starting to see that he was raising money, that he was doing things beneath the radar screen. Another reason why this is a major endorsement, if indeed there's a runoff, and I contend it would be between Thompson and Weiner, if there's a runoff at all, and that in a runoff, the teachers union is a force to contend with in a runoff. Remember, you have what? A very short time period to turn it around?
It's 3 weeks this year.
I thought it was 2. Okay.
But they extended it because of the voting machine.
Okay.
Right. And by the way, it's an even lower vote turnout in a runoff than it is in the general, which is already extremely low. And when you're talking about people, boots on the ground, not just the people they can pay to do it, as Dominic said, but people that are volunteering to do it en masse. I mean, we're talking tens of thousands of people potentially hitting the street on an election day. That is a huge deal.
Remember, he comes in with the cushion of the black vote behind him, which is a major force, and a Democratic primary. Now you add the teachers. Then you add, he doesn't have the PBA, but he does have that law enforcement umbrella group. So he's got many major Republicans behind him, like Al D'Amato, who's raising a ton of money for him. Yeah. So Bill Thompson is starting to look like the next mayor of New York.
Is labor
I wouldn't go that far.
Is labor back to being a big force in New York City politics? Did it ever go away and stop being a big force? Because we've been hearing about labor's demise for quite a few years.
Well, we have, but also don't forget, one of the problems they've had with Mayor Bloomberg is he won't negotiate with them, or he won't negotiate under their terms, therefore, so no one's at the table. The unions in New York City don't have contracts. They're operating under old contracts. Yeah. So Bloomberg has said, I will give you 0 looking back and to pay back wages. And anybody who's elected now, if they give him anything, is more than Bloomberg is going to give him.
Right. I got to move on to our next story. Mixed martial arts will not be coming to New York State anytime soon. State Assembly passing on a bill that would have legalized the popular and some would say brutal combat sport. Specifically, state Democrats who control the chamber determined the votes just weren't there. Similar bills have passed the state Senate 4 times, but it hasn't gotten anywhere in the Assembly. The reasons given? MMA's violence, misogynistic and homophobic comments from some fighters, and one more reason: Veto Lopez. One Democrat saying given all the concerns over Lopez and the way Speaker Shelley Silver handled them, the MMA bill was, quote, dead on arrival.
Were those clips mixed martial arts or the Democratic debates coming up?
Zing! We need a rim shot. Anybody here a fan of MMA? I'm definitely not.
I like boxing.
I wouldn't go that far, but I don't know if you guys have ever watched one of these fights. It's not boxing, and it is extremely brutal.
I agree.
It is brutal. There's no question about it. But at the same point, it's a legal sport, just not in New York. Why would you not let it happen here in New York? Why not fill our arenas? Why not let our people who travel to New Jersey and other states to go do this?
Yeah.
Why not watch it in New York?
Is this really adding to the violence culture any more than anything else that's on television all the time?
But I worry about the brain damage that these guys. I know boxers have it as well. I mean, the perfect example is Muhammad Ali.
But you're not
looking
going to
at him
make the New
now.
York Giants.
And football players.
and
Football's got the same problem.
But one night I just watched one of these fights, and I mean, you fight until the other guy can't move anymore, basically.
It's a caged death match without death.
Basically.
Yeah.
But is that enough of a reason to stop it from happening in New York and the state reaping the benefits? I had said for a long time that I didn't think it should be legal. I kind of think maybe it should be.
Maybe that was the reason they got it down on the mat, but the knockout blow was Vito Lopez, because it was the last thing that they needed to kill it.
It's a growing sport, though. I mean, its viewership is up all over the country. Its attendance is up all over the country.
Is Vito Lopez just becoming the umbrella reason for anything that doesn't get done in Albany
I was
at
almost
this point?
late here today, and I was going to blame Vito Lopez.
Lopez traffic on 95, is that?
He did. I was just thinking about him and getting so angry.
It's a bad time to be Vito Lopez. All right, one more update for you. In Westchester County, a big step on the lingering housing segregation settlement. County legislators okaying this week something called source of income legislation, which means landlords can't discriminate against people who pay their rent with Section 8 funds. The county stood to lose millions in federal aid that had that law not passed. County Executive Republican Rob Astorino, who vetoed that same bill in 2010, says he will sign it. Astorino has railed against the settlement against two federal agencies looking to enforce it. And recently he hammered the court-appointed monitor tasked with overseeing the process. Astorino frequently calling it social engineering from Washington. O'Brien, we went at this pretty good last time this topic came up. If it's social engineering and it's so god-awful, why is he signing it?
Because the court has told him he has to. That's the only reason he should be signing this at this point. If the court didn't instruct him to do it, he wouldn't sign it.
But the court has also told him to do a few other things that he's not doing.
And he's fighting where he can fight. But he has been told he'd be held in contempt if he didn't do it, so he's doing what he's been ordered by the court at this point. Let's make this very clear. HUD is out to change the zoning in Westchester County. There's been a press conference this week, if I'm not, or late last week, of Democrat and Republican leaders from various communities, town supervisors and mayors saying Rob Astorino is right, he's fighting the right fight. We do not want to change our zoning because of what HUD wants us to do. HUD keeps on forgetting. Westchester's an expensive county to live in.
It's also overwhelmingly white.
But an expensive county doesn't mean you can then take the land, change the zoning, and change everything just because HUD wants you to do it. You've got to find other ways to do this.
You've got a vast majority of the towns in Westchester County that are 95% white
but the housing
or more.
That's not the discussion. The discussion is on affordable housing so people can do it. There's certain benchmarks that have to be met so people can move into this community from wherever, by the way, which is one of the challenges. Why not have housing so people from Westchester can afford to live here and stay here instead of move outside the county?
But that's not impacted by source of income.
No, but the overall HUD overreach and what's going on. One of the major flaws in the source of income, and I'm glad it's got a 5-year sunset provision in this, thankfully. Don't forget, anyone that's getting Section 8, that doesn't pay 100% of your rent. You still have to pay, I believe it's 30% of the rent out of your own income. Landlords now can't go and say, where's that 30% coming from?
Andrew, let me ask you a question on this. Hasn't this issue been going on in Westchester County like since the 70s?
Well, I mean, there were busing issues in Yonkers, but this was specific
That was Judge Sands back
But this
then,
was specific to federal housing dollars that Westchester took and then did not do everything, at least the court found, to make sure that there wasn't segregated housing in the county. And this is going back, this settlement was signed in 2009 before the last county executive election.
But I know the issu's gone back before that.
Yeah, but don't forget, too, one of the other big proponents and supporters of Rob Astorino on this is Reverend Richardson from the National Action Network, the national chairman of this, who is the national chairman of Al Sharpton's organization. And he's supportive.
I don't know if Reverend Richardson is fully supporting him. But I will admit, Reverend Richardson is a major player locally, and he's also a major player nationally.
He supports Rob Astorino in this fight right now, believing what he's doing is right, because Astorino is leading the charge on building housing right now in Westchester and getting it done, unlike what HUD is doing and saying you've got to do it differently. He's saying I'm doing it. They're not liking the way he's doing it.
So it's not just the houses. It's eliminating the cycle of housing segregation that has popped up in the county.
He's exceeded the benchmarks.
We'll have this in the housing, not in eliminating the barriers.
The job is the housing. That's the requirement they have to do is build the housing.
It's both. We're going to take a quick break.
I thought HUD wanted to see more people of color, but I'm sorry to mess up.
I think
that was my interpretation of it, but I'm sorry to interrupt your tease.
That's
there.
quite all right. Let me tease away. Up next, we have some news in the IRS scandal that suggests the outrage might have been a wee bit overblown. We're going to get into that next.